What's up guys, welcome to another OrmsTV video, and today we are checking out a brand new Fuji X-H2.
Yeah, so if you're watching this video pretty much as it goes live, then Fuji would have just announced this camera. They dropped it off for us a couple of days ago, so we've had a look, we've had a play, we've taken some pictures, we shot some video, and we're going to give you guys our first impressions on the all-new Fuji X-H2.
Now before we get into the specs of this unit and show you some examples, we did receive this as a heavy pre-production unit. So obviously when the camera launches officially and you buy one off the shelf, the firmware will be updated and most of the glitches will have been worked out. Now that being said, Fuji did just recently launch a X-H2S. Now we're going to clear the sort of confusion in the room and talk about sort of the highlighted specs on this unit specifically, and then maybe cover who it's really aimed for and what the differences are.
Yeah, so just to dive straight into it, the big spec on this camera, and really the one that Fuji seems to care by far the most about, is the fact that this unit now sports a 40 megapixel sensor, which in the world of APS-C crop cameras is huge. It is.
Yeah, it's the first time.
It is the first time. It's the highest megapixel count in any APS-C camera to date.
Now that's quite exciting for me. I love that Fuji has finally gone into the high megapixel market, which is going to compete with all the other brands out there. Now, differences of the S and this unit is that the S has a stacked sensor. Now, sort of to sum that up, the S has got faster readout, so that will basically give you faster speed in very different scenarios. Now, specifically, we can probably jump to frames per second now. This guy can shoot 20 frames per second in electronic mode and 15 frames per second in your mechanical shutter mode.
But there is a bit of a caveat there.
Yeah.
And we're not 100% sure if it is firmware related or if it is just with the amount of megapixels, it can't quite read off at the same speed. But it looks like if you do push the frames per second up, so you're going like 15 or 20 frames per second, you do lose continuous autofocus in between those shots. And there also seems to be a crop that is taking place. Now, the X-H2S, of course, doesn't have that, and it'll run up to 40 frames per second with continuous autofocus in between every frame. And, I mean, that's pretty simple. It's math. 40 megapixels, more picture data, it reads off slower, it's not a stacked sensor. It's kind of what we expected. You know, if you can get a solid 15 frames per second out of it, I'm pretty happy with that.
So when Fuji dropped this unit off and revealed the specs to us, having 40 megapixels in an APS-C size sensor, we were quite excited and also worried of certain things. But image quality wise, it is really good. Not only does the body kind of give you that sort of GFX feel, but when you look at the picture quality and you sort of zoom in, it really does give you that super sharp, high resolution image.
It does, but 40 megapixels and it's still not full frame.
Yes, sir.
Now, I know it's Fuji and they're going to keep doing crop sensor, but my concern remains about that picture quality, and wouldn't you be better served going full frame? Or if you're in the Fuji market, maybe consider going to like a GFX 50. But saying that, looking at these images, they are sharp. There is definitely plenty of detail in there. And the picture quality is good. It's classic Fuji. You get your color renditions, you get all the nice Fuji look and feel within your images just at a megapixel count and at a detail level that we previously have not been able to get out of their X series of cameras. But I am still worried. I am still worried about the fact that it is a crop sensor camera. And there's certain things that obviously come along with that. So, you know, one of those is always your low light performance.
Yes, yeah.
How's the unit going to perform? And we did some tests and we looked at it and it was very decent. So we shot a picture at, was it ISO 8000?
Yeah, there was two pictures, one at 6400 and 8000, and it was actually quite decent. I mean, for a high megapixel camera and a crop sensor, it came out surprisingly good. And we did look on it on a computer screen, and yeah, I was actually quite surprised. It's quite decent.
Yeah, I will say it is better than I thought it would be.
Yep.
Most definitely. If you sort of go more to the back of the image, you do lose a lot of the details in there, where you would have to say something with a larger sensor and a similar megapixel count probably would have maintained a little bit better. But at the same time, for what this is, the price point it comes in at, that's a really solid performance, actually. Coupled with that megapixel count and the sensor performance that you get, you're still getting really good autofocus as well. So you're getting all the classics. You're getting your eye tracking, your face tracking, animals, all that, vehicles, everything. And just like in the X-H2S, it works. It just works. It locks on, it stays, it tracks. We have some sequences that we can show you guys of how it performs, and it's very, very good. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm still worried, but I'm surprised.
Fuji delivering a 40 megapixel sensor is also going to boost some of the video performance, because this will allow for some 8K footage.
Yeah, so even though this is very much billed as Fuji's stills APS-C camera in this range, there is pretty decent video that comes out of it. So you are going to get 8K at 30 frames per second, 4K at 60, Full HD at 240, pretty much what you would have expected to see, but the 8K is quite a nice surprise. So with the 40 megapixels, obviously you can now feed an 8K image off that. You can output it all via the HDMI port, all very standard stuff, and the video footage looks good. Unfortunately, right now we don't have access to anything that can really display and decode the 8K footage, but that will obviously be fixed by the time the unit hits shelves. But from everything that we saw, pretty tasty.
Yeah, I mean, something that surprised me is they have the 4K oversample mode. So if you do want to have a little bit of sharper detail, that's a cool mode to access. And also the new F-Log is in here as well, which we quite love.
F-Log 2, which is a beautiful, beautiful picture profile. Nice and flat, very good dynamic range out of it. We shot a lot of footage with that on the X-H2S a couple of months ago when we had that, and we were super happy with it. And it's exactly the same beautiful color and beautiful rendition that you're getting out of this unit. So no complaints there from the video side.
Something that's not changed over the X-H2S is the body design. Exactly the same buttons, exactly the same body and structure. It has that sort of GFX kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
Same card slots, same ports, same battery. Pretty much the same.
Literally exactly the same. Viewfinder, screen, everything identical. And that's not a bad thing, because it is actually really nice. It feels solid. Everything is super tactile. Exactly what we love about Fuji. Everything clicks and presses and turns and folds and does exactly what you want. And it's probably one of our favorite things about Fuji. Look, we still prefer the XT body style.
XT4 with the manual sort of tactile dials.
Yes, most definitely.
But we probably might see an XT5 coming out soon.
Yeah, it's a bit of a badly kept secret almost, that they are probably going to do an XT5, and it's probably going to have this sensor, which would actually be pretty cool. And that's our favorite body style. But if you like this, man, you will be well served. This thing is beautiful.
Like we said in the beginning of the video, this is Fuji's first sort of step into the high resolution market. We were worried about one or two things. For me personally, I think they did a really good job with that sensor. The detail is really good. The low light is really good. The speed is a little bit of a sacrifice, but it's still fast. Like 15, 20 frames is still crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, touching on that speed, it's still more than you got out of any DSLR.
For sure.
And it's still very impressive at the megapixel count. And as I said earlier in the video, for me, I was concerned about the sensor, and I still am. I feel almost like it's too many megapixels on the sensor. But everything that we've seen so far, even with the pre-production firmware and all the other sort of pre-production elements that's in this camera, the performance was really good. And if they can tweak a couple of things, iron out a couple of small things, then by the time that this unit hits the shelves, it could be a really solid performing camera for the market that it's aimed at. And that's kind of where it loses me a little bit on this, because Fuji is aiming this as at a very focused photographic end of the market. So in some of the material that they shared, it's very much about like portraiture and landscape photography and architecture and that kind of thing. And my problem with it is that within the Fuji range, there's already a selection of cameras that do that better than this camera does. And that's the GFX, they're medium format cameras. And if you're looking at the lower end of that, so you're looking at the GFX 50 series, yes, it's expensive and the lenses are pricey, but it is a serious step in terms of the resolution and the detail that those sensors can capture. This unit, I almost feel like it doesn't quite have a place right now. It's almost like they're competing against established sort of full frame sensor cameras out there. And can the sensor get to that same level of performance? Almost. Very, very close, but not quite. And I think that's where it falls a little bit for me. Is this an amazing Fuji APS-C camera? Yes, absolutely.
For sure.
It is phenomenal for what it is. But it's not quite. It's just not quite there. And that's where it falls for me. And I really hope they fix some of the things, and I'm sure they will. But I just don't know where this fits.
Thanks for joining us on the first look on the Fuji X-H2. We really hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to hit that like button.
Yeah, and as always, guys, if you enjoy the content that we produce, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps us out a lot. And if there's anything you'd like to know about this camera, or any other camera really, drop a comment down below. We love hearing from you guys. Until next time, cheers.